You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
What's up, everyone? Benny Gold here with Lawyer Stories. This is our first ever podcast. I'm very excited to be coming to you today from Central Massachusetts. As you know, we've been at this Lawyer Stories thing for over 2 years. That's at lawyer_stories on Instagram. It's a big community we've been growing. We also have it on Facebook. Lawyer Stories, we have a little less following, but it's still a great community nonetheless. We have a website, thelawyerstories.com, and we actually had our first event in Miami back in January 3rd, which was a big success. We feature lawyers and law students globally. It's a global community that is networking with each other, and today I'm very excited to announce this is our first podcast, hopefully the first of many. And I am with my sister, who is actually across the country in Portland, Oregon. My sister, Liz Gold, is a writer, an editor, a content creator, and she runs her own communications firm called Rhino Media. Welcome, Liz. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Benny. I'm so happy to be here.
We're very lucky to have you, too. We appreciate your time with Lawyer Stories. If you were in Miami, too, January, you would have had a nice cocktail, as Liz was the guest bartender at our first ever Lawyer Stories event there in downtown Miami.
That was fun to get all the lawyers lit. I had a good time doing that. So I'm super psyched to be here with you to talk about Lawyer Stories and this podcast and sort of, as the kickoff episode to this podcast, we wanted to talk about how you started Lawyer Stories and why you started Lawyer Stories. So this episode is just really dedicated to talking about Lawyer Stories and sort of how it came to be. So a lot of people who may not know Benny, I mean, I know a lot of people know you because you are Benny Gold, but, you're a UMass Amherst graduate. You're a Roger Williams Law School graduate in 2006. You're the executive director of North Central Massachusetts Housing Authorities, which keeps you very busy. And obviously, you're the founder of Lawyer Stories, which launched in July of 2017. So it's been an awesome project. And as your older sister, it's been really amazing to see you grow it. And I love, one of the things that I love about Lawyer Stories is just how diverse it is, because it truly is a global community. So tell us, Benny, how did you get the idea to start Lawyer Stories?
Well, thanks, Liz. That was a terrific introduction. I appreciate that. Lawyer Stories is truly a project personal to me. I've always been intrigued by the law. I used to read case books that I bought off eBay. I remember sitting on Old Orchard Beach and you coming up to me and saying, "Hey, Benny, a little light reading for the book, for the beach." And I was holding these big case books and contracts and property. But I always liked reading cases. I would read some different articles online for constitutional law. And, then I decided if I wanted to go to law school. If I didn't go a year after I had graduated college, I never would. But, it wasn't easy. It had some ups and downs. I got through it. I passed the bar. And then, finding a job was also sort of a challenge. I think when you don't have a mentor in the law and you're not top of the class, it could be a challenge. But I think, I have a passion. And when I started talking to other lawyers, it was interesting because I wasn't asking them about their cases. I was asking them about did you like law school? What was your favorite part of law school? What was really challenging to you? And those are the type of things that I really enjoyed hearing. And I felt if I feel like I had a journey and a story through undergrad and through law school that everybody else does, everybody else has some challenges or maybe an inspiration. And so it just sort of started and it's been great. It's taken off a little bit. And of course, I appreciate everybody who's contributed their story and has opened up and been vulnerable and shared with us on the Lawyer Stories community and platform.
Yeah, I love how it shares, the struggle. Like, I personally love stories of redemption and people who like make it through struggles and challenges and really can showcase their resiliency. And a lot of those stories, tell about how people struggled through law school or, their life circumstance to become lawyers to greater impact their communities. And it's really powerful. And so how did you know at one point when you created this, how did you know it was going to actually become a thing and that you're like, oh my gosh, this is actually taking off?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really started with 5 people that I knew. I said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you want to write a little bit about what you think about the legal profession, or maybe what your favorite case is? And then as I started featuring them on Lawyer Stories, I learned different ways to interact with other lawyer pages and lawyer communities, people who are active on Instagram. There are certain ways to build your account organically. And then I just kept posting, and I kept posting, and I kept posting, and I received messages and people telling me, hey, I think you're onto something. And, people really enjoying humanizing the profession and connecting with people from all over the world based on their story, and not just looking at their resume and their credentials, or, what school they went to and that sort of thing. So after a while, when I kept getting stories and people who were intrigued by what I was doing, it grows. And, anything worth anything takes time. So this isn't an overnight project. This is something that I plan to just keep going with and building over time.
I mean, what do you think makes it special? I mean, I can sit here and tell you what I love about lawyer stories. And I know I've heard, people, obviously by the show of attendance at your event in Miami, people are really psyched about it. People really want to tell their stories. And I think we're in a place right now culturally where it's really important to tell stories. And so, I mean, what do you think makes the Instagram account and the community special?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And like you mentioned earlier, the diversity is amazing. To feature people of all backgrounds who live everywhere in the globe, who've come from all different places, all different walks of life, all different cultures. One thing personally that I enjoy, that I think distinguishes us, is that I try to reach out and talk to, or if people reach out to me, I DM, I email with everybody. This isn't me just taking other accounts and finding stories somewhere else and putting them on Lawyer Stories. This is people sitting down to write their narrative and emailing them to me in order for me to post, feature these people on Lawyer Stories. So I think we're distinguished because there's this personal connection, whether it's a DM, whether it's people coming to me asking if they know somebody in this area of the law, or people just asking how they can be featured on Lawyer Stories. So there is this personal connection. I'm proud to say that I'd say 95% of the people, these impressive lawyers and law students that I've featured on Lawyer Stories, I have personally communicated with. And I think that's what makes us different in an age of social media, where a lot of it's sort of copycat, and not in a bad way. I think that's good. I think when you find a good meme or you find something that's funny, like, we all want to share it and get a good laugh. But Lawyer Stories is different. Lawyer Stories is like beyond social media. It's beyond Instagram. It's beyond Facebook. It's a community where people are connecting all over the globe.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about more about your goals, but you mentioned impressive guests, and it makes me think about, like, you've had a lot of impressive guests. I mean, from all walks of life, and you've had high profile guests. Like, didn't you had Miss Miami? Is that right?
Yep,
Or
Miss Miami was there.
Miss
Yeah, sure.
Miami, and you had somebody from The Bachelor. So if you're a fan of The Bachelor show, you might want to
Yep, we
watch.
had a couple actually.
Yeah.
A couple of people from different Bachelor episodes and Bachelorette. Our friend Josiah and friend Erica. So we featured them at 2 separate times. Very, very nice people and great attorneys. And I hope to get them on this podcast as soon as
Yeah.
we launch, because I just want to tell everybody out there listening that we will have other guests. This is, again, the welcome sort of launch of the Lawyer Stories podcast, along with my sister, Liz Gold from Rhino Girl Media out in Portland, Oregon. I am stationed here I live in Massachusetts.
Yes, but we both travel, so we're not, you know, we can get out of our perspective.
Yeah, we travel, sure. Yeah. The first party was in Miami. Hey, why not throw a party in Miami?
Right. But you also just, I know you've had another guest. Didn't you have the lawyer of Trayvon Martin?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We had attorney Ben Crump
Yeah.
featured on Lawyer Stories. They were kind enough to send over his story. A very nice guy, very
Yeah.
powerful attorney. So well respected in Florida and other states. Yes.
Yeah.
So we've
Yeah.
had, we had David Otunga, famous. He went to Harvard, famous wrestler. We've had, I don't like to single out anybody because I think all of our stories are special. But yes, we have had some high profile or public figure sort of guests. That is true. Yes.
Right. Yeah, and everybody's story is important, and I think that's an important piece that you say, you know, even though you've had some high profile attorneys, you know, every story is unique and important and adds to the community, you know, women who have overcome domestic violence and sexual assault, and, you know, people who have been told that they would never get through high school, right, or college, you know, it's like really people who have, you know, overcome major struggle and challenges. And so it's really inspiring.
Thank you.
And, you know, I think you post every day, there's somebody new, and your stories on Instagram are always active with fun shots of my cute nephew and, you know, all of that. So it's a really community oriented account, you
Yeah,
know, on
thank you. I
Instagram.
appreciate that. I appreciate you following along
Yeah, of
and
course.
your nice commentary.
Yeah. So when you started, you know, obviously you just sort of started it, but did you have any sort of goals in mind? And as you move forward, I mean, because you started this in the summer of 2017, I remember when it launched, you know, what's next as we move into 2020 and beyond?
Yeah, that's a great question. For a while I didn't really know what was being built. I just know if I kept working at it every day, it'll eventually be something because it's special and it's a personal project from the heart. And so what I think it's developed into, and what I would like to see out of it, and what I have heard feedback about it, is that I want it to be the biggest global network of lawyers and law students that you ever did see. I have people who I'll see a Instagram post of a few people and notice that like 2 out of the 5 people I featured on Lawyer Stories. I'll have people say to me, hey, I've got a couple DMs that said, hey, I went to a conference and somebody came up to me and said, I think I saw you on Lawyer Stories. It's really
amazing.
connecting people like through their stories. Yeah. And so one thing we're going to do is the podcast. Obviously, I want to keep that going and get some guests on here. And then we have a website as well, the lawyerstories.com, that we're going to keep active. And we encourage our community to send in blog posts, and I will post them on the website. So we want to get those things more active as we continue with our Instagram and Facebook. And so that's what I see right now happening.
Mm-hmm. That's
Good
great.
Yeah.
And so I mean, the people that are featured, you know, they're not just lawyers, they are also law students. So is that right? And what would you say is the percentage of like both of, it's just lawyers and law students, or is there anybody else that's featured on the page?
No, it's just lawyers and law students. I'd say it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
It depends on who comes up in the queue, but I think it's pretty equal when it comes to that. People want to share their story early on because they're really excited to be going to law school. And I think, posting their stories brings about a lot of encouragement. And then they connect with people who are alumni and now attorneys who've gone to their school. And then, they encourage each other. And I mean, I've seen people try to connect for coffee and posts, just those type of things. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I wish I could meet them for coffee too. I wish I could take a tour and meet all everybody that I featured. I mean, it's just a very nice group of people, a community. I'm all about community. And I think that that's something that's illustrated throughout the Lawyer Stories feed.
So since doing this, what have you learned? What's been like some of your greatest takeaways?
What have I learned? Wow. Well, yeah. I think that's a good question. I mean, I think that I think one thing I've learned is that I think this generation more than anybody is into presenting themselves on social media.
Mhm.
I've learned how important uh, it is to put yourself out there and be vulnerable sometimes, because one of the most important things about lawyer stories is if you're sharing your story, there's I mean, if you live in Massachusetts like I do, and you share your story, there could be somebody in Arizona who's had a similar story, is feeling down on their luck, but they read your story of hope and inspiration, and they feel motivated and they feel inspired. So like you're connecting with people, and I think it's important to show that side of you. I think it's important for lawyers, especially, when everything was so grade based and you top the class, and I think it's important to be able to be a little vulnerable and connect with people from a different angle.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Well, it's so easy, I think, in the age of the internet to just show our glossy sides, and just be like, "Hey, this is everything I've accomplished," and and just not really show the struggle, or the real story, or the all the time and effort and resources it takes to get somewhere. So I appreciate the fact that you are showcasing people's true stories about, and people are writing true stories. They are wanting to share their
Yeah,
authentic story about how they got to where they are, which I
right.
think
People
is,
are very proud. They're very proud,
yeah.
and which they should be, because it's no easy thing. For some people, school comes easy, but everybody at some point hits a challenge. It's a roadblock, and chances are there are other people out there who have the same ones. So if you make yourself vulnerable, you might be able to connect with somebody who's going through a similar thing. And I think it's very important to be able to share these things and connect with each other.
Yeah, no, I agree. So if people wanted to get involved in lawyer stories, what's the different ways they can do that?
Okay, so if you want to get involved with lawyer stories, you can send us a direct message at lawyer_stories on Instagram. We're also on Facebook, but send the message on Instagram if you can. If you want to send a message through the website, our website is thelawyerstories.com. You could let us know if you'd like to be featured, or you could suggest us to somebody else, but we'd rather have the person reach out who wants to be featured, and we can discuss um, getting a post up. So that's a couple ways to get in contact with us.
That's a lot. So
That's a
if you
lot.
want
Yeah.
a
So how about you, Liz? Like it's very nice to have my sister. You did a wonderful job. Can I just tell you, my sister, you're so talented. I might have to take you on full time as an interviewer on the Lawyer Stories podcast. I think it's something that we'll have to actually revisit. I just want to tell everybody a little bit about my sister, who runs Rhino Girl Media out in Portland, Oregon. She helps companies and individuals advance and evolve in their messaging and create compelling content for a variety of mediums. Liz spent 13 years writing about the accounting profession and has reported on the intersection of CPAs and cannabis. Liz lived in New York City and Brooklyn, or worked in New York City, lived in Brooklyn for a while. Like I said, she's now out in Portland, Oregon, but she travels often. You should definitely check out her personal blog. It's obviously one of my personal favorites. It's super cool. It's over at 14caratliving.com. That's 14caratliving.com. Or slide into her DMs. Liz is very approachable and kind. If you have any needs with communications, and on Instagram, she's at Liz Stacy Gold. That's at Liz STACY Gold. And that's it. If everybody has any questions, you can, of course, send me a DM. We appreciate everybody who's listening to this. I'm looking forward to taking Lawyer Stories to the next level. I believe that this is going to be huge, and I want everybody to be a part of it. It's a personal journey. Lawyer Stories is part of my personal journey. I have posted my story before, and the reasons why that I started Lawyer Stories. But we thank you, everybody who has listened to this. Please let me know if you have. I'm very new at the podcasting, but I know it's worthwhile and it's worth the time to continue the evolution of Lawyer Stories. So we thank everybody so
awesome.
much. Liz, do you have anything else?
Not really. I think you did a great wrap up, and I just encourage everybody to check out the Instagram page and to submit their story. And if you know of a lawyer that should submit their story, to talk to them and tell them about lawyer stories. So, thank you, Benny, and I look forward to seeing what comes next.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Liz, for today, and to all our listeners and our community. Thank you all. And wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.
Cheers.
The Lawyer Stories podcast is produced by Rhino Media and Marketing the Law. Are you looking at your social presence every day? Potential clients are. Learn how to magnetize your brand with the help of Marketing the Law. Find us on Instagram at Marketing the Law to learn more.